As a teacher, your job is to educate the student. This means that no matter what happens, you're really trying to convey the information as well as the learning objectives, and these may change from time to time. But this can be the most successful portion of your career if you take on a teaching attitude. People who are in sales keep a closing attitude so they can close the sale. But you, in teaching, you want to solve problems and you want to prepare students for problems that will come in the future. Therefore, take on a teaching persona. Sometimes this may take on a point of a teachable moment. Okay, you made a mistake. There's not the end of the world having a mistake. It just means you need to learn what you did wrong and fix it for next time. There's nothing wrong with failure. Failure is part of the process of learning. It's part of the process of education. But if you fail, they better fail going 90 miles an hour. That is, they better have tried their hardest to achieve it. So as you approach things with a learning attitude, or a teaching attitude rather, remember what it is that students are being asked to achieve. Remember, as we've stated earlier, you want to always be working with the end goal in mind. You want to make sure that you have a goal and that you are working towards the goal and that every step along the way teaches as part of the goal. Now, for many of us, we ask the students to go home and read. Once they have read, they come back and we give a lecture. The lecture covers many of the parts that they've read and allows them to ask questions and allows you as the teacher to expand upon the important parts of the reading and not to dwell on the unimportant parts of the reading. So once you've discussed it, the lecture becomes a portion of the enrichment, right? You're giving them the best information that they need, the best knowledgeable end. Then you give them a small exercise. Now this may be a quiz based on what they've learned. This could be a paper or an assignment. Or in many cases for graphic designers, this involves a small exercise in which they do a small practice of the ideas and concepts that you've gone over. Then this is followed up with an assignment or a project, which allows them to take things to the very next level. Usually this assignment or project is big, spans a week and a half or perhaps even 2 weeks worth of time, and allows them to take the skills that they've done well on for an exercise and push this into something bigger and better. For English, you may talk about certain styles of writing, perhaps persuasion, and then ask them to write a persuasive paper. Now, these exercises and assignments, these readings and these lectures, they don't have to be a pain for you, and they don't have to be a pain for the student as well, especially if you are going to take this on with a teaching attitude. The important thing becomes that every student should be taught with their end goal in mind. Certainly, the end goal of any course in a community college has a certain set of student learning objectives which must be met for the course. And every week along the way, you have student learning objectives that allow each student to see this week we're learning on these points. There's a reading which reinforces those. There's possibly videos that reinforce the readings or the topics, and everything seems to flow in line. They're given an assignment which relates to the student learning objectives for the course and the student learning objectives for the week, and is something that is measurable and something that's appropriate. But the end goal is really the important part. And so, every piece should be examined to ensure that it is being presented to the student in a teaching fashion. Now, sometimes in your classroom, you may find that you will occasionally have one student who isn't buying in. You as a teacher are professional, you're respectful, you're knowledgeable about the materials that you're working with and why you're doing them. You have the students' benefit in mind, their end goal in the way, and there's no question involved as to whether or not you're producing the best works that will be helpful to them, because you're approaching this with a pleasant, happy teaching attitude. But sometimes you may find a student who's not buying it. In which case, if you have a student that is not buying it, that student has to be convinced. Now, occasionally, and by this I mean I hope occasionally, you will find that there are students who, for lack of a better word, ooh, that's some big lightning. For lack of a better word, poison the well of your classroom, so that students have a small uprising and they think that perhaps the material you're providing is not excellent. Or you may find that there is occasionally someone who is out to get you. One of the great things about teaching to adults is they're motivated to do well. One of the poor things about teaching to adults is when you find an adult who is motivated to make you look bad, they're going to do their damnedest to make you look bad. So, if that is the case, why not take things a step further than just matching your material to the SLOs? That being specifically, explain it to the students. Many times along the way, you will discuss what you're learning about and then what the new assignment is. Instead, you'll have to alter your approach. And when altering your approach, you'll need to discuss with them in a very frank and serious manner what it is that they are looking at. So, for instance, you may say to your class, today we're going to do charcoal drawings, and your student may step forward and say, why are we doing charcoal drawings? I prefer working with pencil. I'm never going to work with charcoal. I don't care for charcoal. Charcoal is expensive and it smudges too easily. I think I'm going to use pencil instead. I think we're all going to use pencils, aren't we, class? So if you're in a situation like this, and it could come for any other thing, someone might say, I'm not going to write a persuasive paper because I don't really feel I'll be doing any type of writing within my job. So I'm not going to write a persuasive paper. I'm just going to write a fact-based paper, and I think that's what you're going to get from me. So in situations like this, what do we got going on here? In situations like this, you may want to start with the SLOs of the course. You say, all right, well, look, it seems like everybody needs a little bit of an explanation here, so let's go ahead and talk about it. This is a drawing course. We talk about different materials and different methods, and one of the materials that we're going to work with is charcoal. Charcoal is the medium for drawing. Pencils and graphite are nice. They haven't been around forever. They don't give you the shading control that you will get out of charcoal. It's difficult to work with graphite, but it is very easy to work with charcoal. Plus, we're going to try it out. If you don't like it, no big deal, but you will have to do it. It is one of the SLOs for this course. Also, here's the student learning objectives for this week. This week, you need to, number 1, learn how to draw with charcoal. Number 2, learn how to blend with charcoal. Number 3, learn how to add highlights and shading through the use of erasers and white chalk. So, this week you need to learn to do those things. The SLOs for the course say you're going to do it. This week say you're going to do it. If this is a skill that you cannot master, you're welcome to take a 0 for the course, but if you don't have this skill, you won't be able to complete later projects in this class, and it would probably be more fruitful for you to drop out if that would be the case. You could probably handle it a lot nicer than that, and in fact, probably when I go back and look at this video, I'll have to change that. But anyways, long story short, you want to make sure that you are presenting materials, especially when there is an objection which is being raised. No matter what the situation, always make sure that you are approaching these problems with an attitude of teaching. Remember, you are there to solve a problem. And it may be a problem that the students have today. It may be a problem that the students will need to help solve bigger problems before the end of the semester. Or it may be a solution to head off a problem later in life. The problem could be now, it could be later, or it could be far away. Now, there are many reasons why a student might object to the materials that you are positing to them. It may be in a lecture, and maybe they don't know the material. They may be ignorant of it, and so they think that it is a failure. It may be that they have had a negative experience with this in the past, and they're not willing to try it again. God damn it. It may be that it may very well be that the student has been educated differently. It may be that the student themselves have learned what will work, and it's not what you're trying to hand off to them. There are many, many reasons. They may have had different experiences, they may be older, they may use different software. There's lots of reasons why a student will say no when you give them a problem, or when you give them a solution. But the main reason that they say no is because they don't know, K-N-O-W. They don't know the right solution. They don't know enough to say yes. And if you go towards them with a positive thinking attitude, letting them know from the very top to the very bottom that you believe in them, that you are behind them, and that all these positive things can be brought to light, they're never going to do these changes unless you ask them to do so. So, to put this into positive knowledge today and put it into practice, start thinking of the ways that you can take on a positive teaching attitude and work in problem solving. Remember, they're not going to do anything unless you ask them. They're not going to say yes unless they understand. A positive teaching attitude will get them there.